Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallama ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. There's two main arguments in traditional Islamic theology for the existence of God. The first is called the argument from contingency. The second one, the Kalam Cosmological argument. Each one of them is based on the refutation of a particular kind of infinite regress. We looked at the infinite regress in the argument from contingency in the previous lesson. We saw that the argument from contingency is based on disproving or proving the impossibility of an infinite regress of contingent dependencies. The Kalam Cosmological argument is different, and it's based on demonstrating the impossibility of something that I'm calling the infinite regression of ordered events. The Kalam Cosmological argument is it sits on top of the argument from contingency. I'll explain that at the end of this lesson, inshallah. The goal of the Kalam Cosmological argument is to prove that the universe began to exist. In the argument from contingency, we're proving that the universe depends on a necessary being. In the Kalam Cosmological argument, we're proving that the universe began to exist, and therefore there's something that made it exist, and that thing that made it exist has certain characteristics. But the most important and complex part of the Kalam Cosmological argument is the argument for the fact that the universe began to exist. So the Kalam Cosmological argument is an argument for the impossibility of an infinite past. So if you have the present moment, then just before the present moment, just before now, there is a previous moment. That moment is determined by some event, such as the ticking of a clock. The ticking of a clock, the movement of the second hand, is an event, and we can measure time with that regular event or through any other kind of regular event. We're going to imagine a hypothetical clock that ticks all the way back continuously in time. And we're going to use this hypothetical ticking of a clock to measure and make these events. So time and events are related. Time is defined in terms of events, things that happen. That's why I'm calling this kind of an infinite regress the infinite regress of events, ordered events. So there's the previous moment, and before that there's another moment also determined by this hypothetical event of a ticking of a clock, and before that there's another moment, and before that there's another moment, and you can keep on going on and on and on. And the question is, can this go on forever without end? Is it possible for the previous moments to keep on going on so that there's no first moment? There's no first moment. If so, then the universe did not begin to exist. But if there is a first moment, then the universe did begin to exist at that first moment. The most complex part of the Kalam Cosmological argument demonstrates that an infinite regress of past ordered events is impossible. So the word infinite means without end. Regress is the opposite of progress. Progress is movement is in the forward direction. Regress is movement in the backward direction. One of the things that I'm illustrating in this lesson, in the lesson before this, is that there are many different kinds of infinite regress. The infinite regress here is an infinite regress of events. These events, they are ordered, but they're not causally related to each other. They don't depend on each other. It's just ordered. There's two kinds of orderings. There's something called an essential ordering, which means that they have to be ordered, and with time, that's what you have. There's something called the arrow of time. Time only moves in the forward direction. So time is essentially ordered. There's a debate around that with in the modern philosophy of time. I'm putting that aside for now, just going by our intuitive understanding of time. And but this argument actually also works for things that are non-essentially ordered, meaning that they don't have to be ordered, but you can place them into an order. We're putting that aside for now because our focus is time, and we want to show that an infinite regress of past ordered events is impossible. So if you have a hypothetical clock that's ticking, and it keeps on ticking as you move backwards in time, then that backwards motion cannot go on without end. Why not? That's what we're going to demonstrate. So if we look at, so here's a series of past events, a long series. Can it go on forever? It can't go on forever. That's something that we can see intuitively without needing a formal argument. You can intuitively see that for an infinite, i.e. never-ending amount of time to elapse, i.e. come to an end, is impossible. If it never ends, it can't come to an end. It's a contradiction in terms. Another way to see this is that you can never arrive at any infinite number. Infinity is not a number. As you go backwards in time, or just as if you go forward, every time you add one, you're at a number. You never reach anything that's called infinity. Any number you arrive at, you can add one to it. Any number, it has to be finite. That's the meaning of number. So if you ask about the quantity of time that's elapsed, it has to be a number. It can't be infinity. Infinity is not a number. I demonstrate this in greater detail in other videos that I've produced. And I want to just, I'm not going to get into detail on these other arguments because I'm focusing in this lesson on a very specific demonstration of the impossibility of an infinite regress of past events. But I want you to put in your mind that there's many other ways that we can get at this. It's not something, for example, that can ever be scientifically demonstrated. You can never scientifically demonstrate the passing of an infinite quantity of time. Because either it's ended, in which case it's not infinite, or it hasn't, in which case you're still at it. So these informal reasons aside, just to help us grasp this at an intuitive level, let's look at the formal proof. The formal proof, this is one formal proof. It's a common proof in manuals of traditional Islamic theology. It's called Burhan at-Tatbiq. Tatbiq means correspondence. So it's in the impossibility of an ordered past series of events, of a never-ending ordered past series of events based on correspondence. And it works like this. It's a proof by contradiction. So in a proof by contradiction, you assume that what you want to show is false. So in this case, you assume that an infinite of regressive past events exists. So you assume, for argument's sake, that a never-ending quantity of time has elapsed. And then we're going to show that this leads to a contradiction. How are we going to do that? We need to set things up appropriately. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a subset of these past events. So the series is never ending in the past that you see here. We're going to take a subset. We can start at any arbitrary past date. I'm going to pick 1453. That's the date of the fall of Constantinople and the founding of Istanbul by Muhammad al-Fatih, because I happen to be recording this lesson from Istanbul. So let's take 1453, and let's take this collection of past events from 1453 all the way back, never ending, that's our assumption. Let's cut it out. So now we have two collections of past events. We have the parent collection from now into the never-ending past, and we have the subset part of that collection, which is 1453 into the never-ending past. Both of them are infinite in the past direction. We can see that the parent collection is larger than the subset. So from 1453 to the never-ending past is smaller than from now to the never-ending past. That's easy to see. Now, at the time of recording this lesson, is 2022. And between 2022 and 1453 is 569 years. So the smaller series, the smaller collection is smaller than the larger one by 569 years. So it's smaller than it. The contradiction is that we can also show that it's the same size as it. We do that by setting up a correspondence. We take the first moment in each collection and we pair them together. We put them to a side. Take the next moment and pair them together, put them to a side. Then the next moment, then the next moment, and then we keep on going. And you can see that if the past is never ending, then you can keep on going like this without end. And that means that for every moment in the parent collection, there is a moment in the sub collection, and that means that they are the same size. And that's the contradiction, because it's impossible for two collections of things to be smaller, for one of them to be smaller than the other one and the same size at the same time. That's impossible. And that means that the assumption that we began with, that an infinite regress of past events exists, is false. And that proves that an infinite regress of past events is impossible. So this is a very carefully structured formal argument. It's part of the formal argument for the entire structure of the Kalam Cosmological argument, which we study in the Islamic logic course. And it's one way to set things up. As I said, it's called Burhan al-Tatbiq in Arabic. It's the most popular setup in traditional Islamic theology. It's actually quite powerful. You can do many things with it. And through it, we disprove the existence of an infinite regression of ordered events into the past, and we prove thereby that there was a first event and that the universe began to exist. There's other ways to set this up as well. There's other arguments that we can make. The thing that I want you to take away is that this is a different kind of infinite regress than the one that we saw in the video on the infinite regress of contingent dependencies, to do with the argument from contingency. The conclusion of this argument, when you disprove this infinite regress, is that the universe began to exist. The conclusion of the other argument is that a necessary being exists. Now, what you do next is you take the Kalam Cosmological argument and you stack it on top of the argument from contingency, and you come to the same conclusion, that the universe depends on a necessary being. We'll do that separately, inshallah, in this course. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.